Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finding Your Joy. I am so happy to be joining you today with a fellow Northwest girl. She's Washington State. I just love her. Linda Frank. She is a board certified reflexologist. Yep. And I just love it. And I personally am fascinated with the benefits of reflexology. So first off, Linda, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you
for joining us.
It's really wonderful to be here, Paula. I love to sit and talk with you, so this is terrific.
I love it.
And I love to be able to share the benefits of reflexology, how profound it has been for my life. It's been wonderful. I was a massage therapist back in the early 1980s and took my first reflexology class then. Had I known how incredible it is, I would have just done reflexology then. Yeah. But here I am 30 whatever years later, reconnecting with it, and it really is an incredible modality and has a very special place in my heart. I feel so fortunate that I get to do this every day to help people get relief from all kinds of pain, including foot pain, but hip pain and shoulder pain. And
I know myself, I really had no idea how fantastic and amazing it was until I started coming to you several years ago. And it's amazing. It's fantastic. So, Linda, for those out there listening today that really have no idea what it is, they just think, oh, it's just somebody pressing your feet. Explain that to them.
Okay. So basically, we are pressing points on the feet. If you put 2 feet together, it was a physiotherapist, Eunice Ingham, back at the turn of the 20th century, who was working with 2 physicians. She was working with Dr. Shelby Riley, who was an understudy to Dr. Fitzgerald, who was an ear, nose, and throat physician, who mapped these 10 zones across the body and 5 in each feet, and was pushing on these places and zones for analgesic purposes. And so when Eunice Ingham, the physiotherapist, was working with patients' feet, she began to see, you could almost superimpose the human body over a pair of feet. So the 2 great toes would be the head, and then coming out to the shoulder, and the spine would be in the center. So the spinal reflexes we find here in the medial arch of the foot. And so we trace our lineage just back to Dr. Fitzgerald. We know that many cultures have worked with hands and feet for health, for better health. There is a hieroglyph on this physician's tomb in Saqqara, Egypt, of Nubians working hands and feet. And so, but we don't know what they were doing. So we just trace our lineage to Dr. Fitzgerald, the ear, nose, and throat physician, turn of the 20th century. And since then, there are probably about 7 hypotheses as to how reflexology works. We know through the work of a Spanish physician who actually I will be in his class tomorrow in Seattle. He comes to the States about twice a year, and Dr. Jesus Manzanares, and he has used reflexology in his medical practice for about 35 years. And some of his patients let him take biopsies of foot tissue. So where he felt a deposit, one of the deposits was sciatica, correlated to sciatica, and he's a medical doctor, so he knew what that condition was. So he took a sample of that deposit, down here, and a sample of normal foot tissue. And when he analyzed them under a microscope, he found normal foot tissue has only about 7% nerve fiber. Deposits have about 42% nerve fiber.
Oh my gosh.
So the body's laying down extra nerve fiber. So it's almost a way of saying, hey, over here. And when we walked barefoot, we used to naturally stimulate our feet. We'd walk over rocks and twigs, and thereby there's a neurological connection. Dr. Manzanares thinks that it's in the medulla, the pons area of the medulla. So we're using a relay switch. So we're sending a message by pressing on a point on the feet or on the hands or on the outer ears. So we have maps on the outer ears also. In fact, the National Institutes of Health, just a little side note, released a recent study that found that the points on the ears, they used acupuncture needles, but we have a charge with our fingers. And they found that the ear points can be one of the best ways to reduce pain in emergency departments. So that's,
Oh my God.
that's pretty exciting. And the ear points are
Yes.
phenomenal for musculoskeletal pain, neck, shoulder, back pain.
Wow.
I got back from studying with Hannah Markart, a German reflexologist. In Germany, doctors prescribe reflexology.
Mhm.
Here in the States, we're a lesser known modality.
Yes.
We're one of the least known, I think,
Yes.
modalities. But I got back and my hip was, we got waylaid in Atlanta and had to sleep on the floor. So I had a lot of hip pain. And I was in between my second and third clients one day. And I thought, uh-oh, this sacrum is going to just grab, the pain is just going to grab my whole back. You know, when you start to feel like, oh my goodness, this is it. It's just going to cascade. So I laid down in between my second and third clients and I held my ear point, the lower back, the sacral area, and then I held 2 pain points. And after about 7 minutes, I got off the table and the pain was totally gone because it was acute pain. So it doesn't always happen that just holding the points briefly will eliminate pain.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's chronic pain, it oftentimes takes more than one session.
So let's say you're at a pressure point and you're holding that.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is that doing? Is that just sending some kind of message?
Through the nervous system,
Vibration?
we're sending a message up to the brain, and the brain then sends a message back to that body part. That's one way that we understand it. Another way that we understand it is there's something called substance P that had baffled the medical community for decades. And it's a prostaglandin, and it's a way that the body packages trauma, emotion, and into physical tissue. And so it's believed, hypothesized, that when we are reflexing, either with the thumb, we call it thumb walking, or finger walking, that we are breaking up that substance P and preventing it from carrying the pain signal.
Oh my goodness.
We also, when we reflex, we're working through the to address the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system, this is something, it's a part of what's called the autonomic nervous system, meaning we don't think about it, it just happens. Fight or flight, we've heard that term so much. Now we add to that freeze, fight, flight, or freeze. Those are sort of the 3 options we have when we're faced with something traumatic or life-threatening. And we release adrenaline and it goes out to the muscles and it makes our heart pump fast and it gives us the ability to do something. The parasympathetic nervous system we call rest, digest, and I add to that repair. So it's a way that the body can send the energy to the digestive system and relax everything. So we want to be able sometimes, and that's where the body then has the opportunity to do its healing. We're not doing the healing with reflexology. We're just assisting the body. So we're partners.
And that relaxation is a big key, isn't it?
It really is. They're predicting now that I've seen figures anywhere from 70 to 95% of doctor visits are stress related. So when we can help to eliminate stress, and there are really some, I've recently encountered a book called Unlearn Your Pain, and Dr. Howard Schutner, and he explains, it's a workbook for when people are told by doctors, we don't know why you're in pain. Sometimes you can go back and by discovering what emotions get packaged into your physical system. And so Dr. Schutner explains in wonderful, brief detail what parts of the brain are amplifying pain and what parts of the brain are minimizing it, and stress touches those centers of the brain that amplify the pain and shut down the part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that would minimize pain. It's just fascinating. And another thing that I love about what I do, in addition to being able to really watch people lead a better life, and oftentimes having reflexology, they then find they have the energy to exercise, and then they're able to stay on their diet, and then they're feeling like they're joie de vivre again. You know, they really are on a path, a spiral upwards. It's really wonderful. But I also am able to continue to learn. It's so exciting to me. I do research for all my clients, you know, for whatever they're presenting. And so I just love
It's
learning.
fascinating,
It
isn't
really
it?
is. Yeah, it really
Yes.
is.
And to learn, what something like this, the huge effect it can have on us.
And I
amazing.
recently became aware of the work of a Catholic priest named Father Joseph, who's in Taiwan. And I learned that he is teaching impoverished communities to do reflexology, where they don't have access to good health care. And so, of course, I thought, I have to learn not only what he's doing, but how he's teaching lay people.
Yeah.
Now, I also learned that one of my dear teachers, Bill Floco, who has a school in Los Angeles, the American Academy of Reflexology, he also has the World Reflexology. He was one of the founders of the World Reflexology Foundation, and they will begin teaching reflexologists how to teach lay people. Because like Father Joseph said, he had a man come with Parkinson's 18 years ago, and he said to the man's wife, you learn reflexology, you work on him every day for a year. And he said 18 years later, he's symptom-free.
Wow.
So support. I almost always give clients, okay, you can work this point on your hands or on your ears, something that's easy. The feet are not always as easy to work as the hands and ears, but I like to give something that people can do to start thinking, oh, that's right, I know a little reflexology. Now, I've studied hundreds and hundreds of hours. And so it's wonderful to go to a professional, but to know that you have some areas, and there's also now a reflexology coloring book for kids.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so things like, if you have a tummy ache, you can take a little ball and roll it around because the stomach reflex in the hand is kind of in this area. So one woman who I study with, Lynn Booth, she's employed in the United Kingdom with the largest elder care facility as a reflexologist. So she came to the States, to Seattle Reflexology and Massage Center, where I studied and where I continue to take a lot of my ongoing education. So Lynn said on the plane ride over, a little girl was turning blue. She was going into cyanosis. She was gasping for breath. She was having a bad, asthmatic attack. There were no doctors on the plane. So when they put the call out, any doctors, medical professionals. So Lynn said to the mother, I'm a certified reflexologist. Can I show your daughter something? So mother said, of course. So Lynn said, just take your thumb and put it here under your knuckle. And this is the solar plexus point where the thumb ends up. And this is the diaphragm line. So this is dual. And she said, just do this. And of course, that's a fun thing. I mean, you see babies do that with a bottle or something. It feels so good to do. Well, the little girl's color returned. She came out of distress. And Lynn said almost every half hour for the rest of that plane ride, the little girl would walk down the aisle and look at Lynn and go, oh, very sweet. So some very simple things that we can all do.
There it is. I love it. Oh, I love it. This is so fantastic. Everyone, we're going to pop out for a quick break, but stay tuned. Linda and I will be right back. Thank you.